Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Skinamarink. As much mood as it is a movie, I think that's probably one of the most interesting, oddest, amazing pieces of cinema I've seen in a long time. It's not really about anything in a literal narrative sense. It's basically about two kids wake up in the middle of the night, around 3 in the morning or something like that. All the windows and all the doors to get out of their house are gone. So there's no natural light or even from the moonlight coming into their house. The TV is on playing mainly Fleischer Brothers cartoons. I caught that, don't worry. And they're just sort of like staying at the TV for comfort while they color, do Legos, and they know something scary is upstairs. They know their dad is gone. And they don't want to go upstairs because they know something is lurking up there. I was encouraged by a few people, and if anyone wants to take credit, a couple of people said to me I should watch this on my laptop with headphones with the lights off, and that did help. This was very immersive. I wish I had gotten to see it in theaters. I saw it on Shudder, so I did want to support a film like this. This is something that untap something in me as a viewer that I didn't even know was in there, because I this takes place in 1995. I was a kid in 1995. I actually do remember waking up in the middle of the night watching odd syndicated TV. I remember the Fox station would play old Star Trek at 2 in the morning, and so sometimes when I couldn't get to sleep, I'd be like, yes. And then my dad was like, no, go to bed. There's like one Christmas where I was just like up and like I could not get back to sleep. All the presents were there. I couldn't unwrap everything. I would just like be looking in the dark like all the Christmas for like hours, and it had this weird vibe. And I think in this film you're just, there's nowhere to look, and you're just, everything's low. You barely can make out these kids because you're mainly seeing their feet. You're looking in the darkness for like something, and it feels like a dream. The director of this, Kyle Edward Ball, made kind of YouTube short films off of like nightmares people had as kids, and this feels like that. But I remember this house almost like, I mean, it's filmed in a house in Canada. It felt like a house I'd been in before. And even the Fleischer Brothers cartoons, I think they're mainly Fleischer Brothers. I didn't actually check, but I recognized a few of them, especially Want to Be a Member. That's a pretty big one. But I remember my grandparents had those, I think it was SLP tapes. It would go on forever. They used to have a ton of them. They were cheap. And because I was very social at family gatherings, I watched a lot of them. They would just go on forever. And Superman, the Fleischer Brothers Superman, would be at the end. And it would be the cruddiest quality imaginable. Like, you have no idea. Like, the quality they show of the cartoons in this, it's like, I was like, I know that quality. You'd be in this endless like old cartoon loop, and even if you were like sort of in love with it, it just felt like the studio didn't even care. Even as a kid, you got that vibe, and you have this like kind of forgotten quality. Like, if you're ever at a friend's house and like your parents were just upstairs and away from you the entire time, you just felt like you're just like hiding in this room. And I don't know, I was remembering that. I was remembering my own like nightmares as a kid. This film just digs in you in a way that awakens so much. And it's so, I've seen the Liminal stuff on YouTube and I've gotten into it a little bit, but this is far stranger, far more experimental than that. Like, that's trying to be, hinting at maybe a point there. This is using dream logic. None of it makes sense. It is obviously a dream because it stars two kids and they never ask for a snack. There's no way within the length of this any normal kid would not have. There's juice boxes involved at one point, but they never talk about a snack. So I was like, I know it's not real. I don't actually think they're ghosts or something. I just think it is a really scary dream, which makes it even more terrifying. Although also I don't want to know. I think it's a dream, but part of me is like, I don't want to know if they're ghosts. I don't want to know if there's like a computer imagining itself as kids or whatever. It like doesn't matter to me, and I don't think it matters to the film, to this sense of it. It's just being in that moment of this scary dream as a child and feeling, abandoned and scared and like feeling like something's after you that you can't control. and how terrifying that is, or maybe just not understanding something as much as to you being sort of terrified of it. I've long said that like the scariest thing about horror is not explaining something. And I don't want to say like there's only one kind of good horror movie, because that goes against like basically recommending this movie in itself. But I do think there is a real scary thing of, especially now that we have so much knowledge, we have, in this post-industrial age, the idea that we have access to like libraries and Wikipedia and everything like that. And the thing that like something could be terrorizing you and it doesn't make any sense and it's just messing with you is scary. It's scary. It's that scary because there is no rhyme or reason for it. I think we watch so many things about like murder and death and not just horror. And it's like, oh, well, he murdered him because of this thing. And it makes sense in a sense. And Skinamarink is not interested in that. It is strange. It is weird. It makes you think about things. It is probably one of the most interesting experiences I've had with any movie. It takes you to that place of like being a kid in the 90s and just being up and like it would play some weird, odd, old stuff at 2 a.m. And the comfort of it, and you'd keep the TV low. And I remember it was the only time they played The Muppet Show, and if I laughed too much, my parents would come down and get mad at me. So it just reminded me of a lot, but it also reminded me of feelings and the looking behind something in imagery and go, is something there? Oh, that means nothing. Why is that stuck there? What is going on? And it evokes so many questions as a viewer. I think that's what draws you in more. I love that people are into this, and I love that we have an experimental film that I get to talk about. So rarely happens anymore. And we've all talked about how so often like horror is so alive right now. There's so many interesting things going on with this genre. And I think Skinamarink is probably the big interesting odd auteur statement that pushes that even further. Like this is an art house movie. This is not for the faint kind of cinephile. And it's going to mess with your brain, and it's going to be hard to walk around your house at night and stuff. But man, I haven't seen a movie directed this well. It's one of the great filmmaking achievements I think in the last couple of years, what Kyle Edward Ball did, because that I don't come out of movies thinking of like all these like weird childhood things and like for days and like not. I will say it definitely like fucked with me in a sense that I haven't had that happen to me with a movie since I was a kid, which is the other part of it. Like when you see a weird movie on HBO and you're not sure how to like deal with it. I don't know how to deal with Skinamarink. I think that's part of it, is you're just kind of stuck with it and you're like, I don't know. It is a really terrifying movie. It is very scary. I would not see this if you're not going to get fully immersed in it. But if you can, the reward of it is just like you did this with an experimental movie in your house with like weird angles, and it's completely in dark and like made to look vintage and stuff like that. Like, how did this happen? In a sense, like it feels like something this interesting would never get seen, and yet it did. And I think that talks the power of the cinema of this whole thing. I've long thought like there would be a YouTube channel who would launch a great movie. I hadn't seen his YouTube channel before this, but just wow, what he can do with this. I really thought this was really powerful. It hints at so many like deeply disturbing things, especially when you're a kid. So many visceral ideas from the 90s that I know people say like, if you weren't there, man, you wouldn't know. But like they're like that Fleischer Brothers tape. Like I knew that tape, and I remember like just hanging out and coloring with my cousins that tape. And oh my god, just like I almost want to just talk about nightmares I had as a kid and what I recognized in it, because it just felt so real. And like so many things with dreams, like you usually get this bizarre, crazy thing, and it might be cool to look at, but it doesn't feel like you're in an actual dream. You're in an actual nightmare. And not only did he do that, he did that like specifically in a child's mind and specifically at a certain time period. And he absolutely did that really well, while also making one of the more interesting experimental films. I mean, I almost think you can't talk about this. You can't say like, oh, what is the thing upstairs? Like, when they go upstairs, is that real? Like, are they this? Are they like it isn't really about that. It's just experiencing it. And I think a lot of, we talk about like with Avatar, or I guess mainly Avatar, or in certain movies, is about the experience of it. And I don't think there's been a movie that uses the experience of cinema in such an interesting, artistic, bizarre, experimental way as this film does. It really is as much experience as it is an artistic statement that is part of the whole of it. And it is a nightmare I think you want to get out of because it makes you so uncomfortable. But the fact that he's able to do that with an odd, strange movie that's not playing by any sense of any rules is amazing. Like, part of me wants to see it again because I find it really one of the most fascinating kind of ways to make horror movie I've seen in a long time. And yeah, it really took me back. I think it's going to be a long time for me to shake this one. This is, I haven't seen many movies in 2023, but it's going to be really hard to beat this one. I think this is one of the great horror movie achievements and filmmaking achievements I think anyone's done in a long time. This is definitely should probably be up there with something like when you talk about El Mariachi and Clerks and stuff like that, because he made this for no money. He made this in his own kind of cinematic language, and it feels like something I've seen in my mind before. When I was like 8 years old. I don't know how someone reached in and grabbed that kind of experience and did it so well while also being an odd, weird thing. It just, I really love that we're discussing this movie. I love that this is a thing, and I love that people are into this. And I think this is, I just really love this film. It's just something I just want to keep thinking about, even if it definitely horrifies me and it's bringing up things I don't really want to keep thinking about. But I think it's just in there, whether I like it or not. So if you've seen Skinamarink and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.